When men began to multiply on the face of the ground, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were fair, and they took to wife such of them as they chose. They took to wife. That's a verb. They've made wife into a verb there. Then the Lord said, "My spirit shall not abide in man forever, for he is flesh, but his days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came in to daughters of men, and they bore children to them. These were the mighty men that were of old, the men of renown." When's the last time you heard that passage? Come on. The Nephilim? Anyone? That's what I'm saying. Most people don't even know. Nephilim. Say it. It's a fun word to say. Nephilim. I think it's where Hercules is in the Bible, by the way. Really? It's going to be that morning? The sons of God made babies with the daughters of the earth, and then you have Hercules, right? Zeus. We're going to be that kind of morning. All right. Chapter 7, verse 17. I'm only minorly kidding. I mean, like, what are the Nephilim, is my point. Like, we don't know. That's the thing. It's saying that...
Well, if you don't know, we don't know.
That's my point. That's what I'm saying. So if we don't know, let's just say it's Hercules and his brothers and sisters.
Like helium.
17. The flood continued for 40 days. Huh? Oh, 11. I said, right. 11. 7-11. Thank you. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the second month, on the 17th day of the month, on that day, you'd think you'd forget or stop counting by that time, right? On that day, all the fountains of the great deep burst forth, and the windows of the heaven were opened, and rain fell upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. On the very same day, Noah and his sons, Shem and Ham and Japheth, and Noah's wife, and the 3 wives of his sons, were then entered into the ark, they and every beast according to its kind, and all the cattle according to their kind, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth according to its kind, and every bird according to its kind, every bird of every sort. They went into the ark with Noah, 2 and 2 of all flesh, in which there was the breath of life. And they that entered, male and female of all flesh, went in as God had commanded, and the Lord shut them in. The flood continued 40 days upon the earth, and the waters increased and bore upon the ark, and it rose high above the earth. The waters prevailed and increased greatly upon the earth, and the ark floated on the face of the waters. And the waters prevailed so mightily upon the earth that all the mountains under the whole heaven were covered. The waters prevailed above the mountains, covering them 15 cubits deep, and all the flesh died that moved upon the earth, birds, cattle, beasts, all swarming creatures that swarm upon the earth, and every man, everything on the dry land in whose nostrils was the breath of life, died. And then just jumping a couple verses. But God remembered Noah and all the beasts and all the cattle that were with him in the ark. And God made a wind blow over the earth, and the waters subsided. The fountains of the deep and the windows of the heaven were closed. The rain from the heavens was restrained, and the waters receded from the earth continually. At the end of 150 days, the water had abated.
Second reading is found on page 939, and it's John verses 1 through 8. I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch of mine that bears no fruit he takes away, and every branch that does bear fruit he prunes, that it may bear more fruit. You are already made clean by the word which I have spoken to you. Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit by itself, unless it abides in the vine, neither can you, unless you abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides in me, and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit. For apart from me, you do nothing. If a man does not abide in me, he is cast forth as a branch and withers, and the branches are gathered, thrown into the fire, and burned. If you abide in me, and my words abide in you, ask whatever you will, and it shall be done for you. By this my Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit, and so prove to be my disciples. The word of the Lord.
So the first rule of pruning, always have sharp pruners is what I hear. There are two kinds of pruners. You that do gardening probably know this, right? There are bypass scissors and then there are anvils. According to our resident expert, one ought never use an anvil. That's what he says. An anvil has a flat surface and then a blade that comes down onto the flat surface. This method of pruning breaks more than it cuts, apparently. And so when there is not a clean cut, disease can enter the plant. So when you prune, you want a clean cut, and you can get that with the bypass scissor, right? Two sharp blades that cut like this. Now once you've chosen your tool, and again, according to our resident expert, that is the bypass pruner. You have to choose what's needing of pruning, right? The first thing you do, probably obvious, is you prune dead branches. The second, you look for any branch that is crossing or rubbing, so where the plant might be harming itself or stunting its own growth. Now third, this is, in my opinion, where it actually gets a little complicated. The third step in pruning is about shape. What shape do you want the tree or the plant to be? And how we determine the shape of the plant is the needs of the plant, right? So stick with me. A fruit tree needs circulation, right? Because it needs places for the fruit to grow. And so you prune it to give it space. Vegetable plants need optimal nutrients going to the plant. So if you look, there's things that actually pruning people call suckers. And it's places on the branch that don't form an L. So they're just like little things, and nutrients go there. You don't want that. You want the nutrient to go where the vegetation is. Now for some flowering bushes like forsythia, you prune older branches because they don't flower anymore, and you keep the younger ones. When pruning a hedge, you want to make sure that the bottom gets light, right? So as much as like the round branches, the popsicle stick things look good, it's not necessarily good, right? Because the bottom isn't getting any sun. And so optimally, I know you're sitting on the edge of your seat, aren't you? How to Trim a Hedge by Beth Savinsky. Actually not, because I had to consult for this part of the sermon. So it's a trapezoid. You want it to be in the form of a trapezoid. So okay, come on, geometry. Who remembers what a trapezoid is? And Heather Keener cannot answer.
Something that traps zoids.
It is something that traps zoids. Heather said that's right. That's the technical term. So it's a flat. You know it? Hit me.
A quadrilateral with two parallel and two intersecting lines.
You get to go straight to coffee hour.
That child was educated at our preschool, everybody. Okay, so recap. Pruning, right, is about having sharp bypass pruners, clearing out the dead things, getting rid of any place where the plant is harming itself or stunting its own growth, and then pruning is determining the needs of the individual plant. The advanced class today will be taught by Joe Chmielewski, with whom I consulted for that portion of the sermon. So, let's look at the story of Noah as a story of God pruning the earth. Now, I know there are other ways to look at this story. There are a lot of other ways. Option one would be Noah is the quintessentially obedient human being. God tells Noah to build something that Noah has never seen or imagined. God gives blueprints and Noah blindly obeys, taking his toolbox and his family, and they begin to create this big, huge ship together. God says do something, Noah says yes. That would be one way to look at the story. Another way would be God saves the animals, every single kind, every creature that's with wings, with whatever, except the unicorns. Because there's even a song, but I'm going to spare you. God cares for all the things on the a day, a better day. The ark is a place of safety in this way of looking at the scripture. The ark is security. It provides safety and security. Option 3 would be that God, yes, provides safety and security, but only for Noah and his family. And so the rest of the picture is mass genocide at the hands of God. It's death and destruction of epic proportion. People drowning and screaming and swimming for their lives, all the while Noah and his family with the chosen 2x2 animals are locked safely in the ark. Noah and his ark. It's a big story, big characters. It's made for the big screen, which, by the way, they are making it into a movie, and Russell Crowe is going to be Noah. No joke, you heard it here first. Okay. It's true. That one I'm making up. I know that one. Not like the Nephilim. Okay. So, it's a story that you can walk right into, and the characters are life-size, right there with you. To our right, Noah and his wife. Over there, Noah's boys and their wives. When we enter the ark to the left, there's this big family dining room table where they sit and they have their meals, and then maybe after dinner time they play Scrabble while the storm is raging outside, right? There are 3 decks in this zoo cruise, apparently. The Lido deck has the safari animals, and the promenade is all about the monkeys, or whatever you call them. The birds off the bridge. So walk into the story with me. Like I said, there's a lot of ways to walk into it, but today we're going to walk into it as a story that God is pruning the earth. The story begins when people began to multiply on the earth. The sons of God took for themselves the daughters of humans, and they bore children, the heroes of old. The earth was corrupt. Things had gone awry. There was violence, and God had to do something about it. Here's the problem. Every living thing had the breath of life in it. The breath of life that God had given to Adam. Everything on the earth was fashioned and imprinted with the Creator's unique genius. Living things, all living things, were sustained, held by God's breath. And so although there was this corruption, although there was this violence, that corruption and the violence was coexisting with the breath of life. And so when God saw the corruption, witnessing the world as it had become, did God also feel the pulsing rhythm of the breath of life? The in-breath and the out-breath, all sustained by God. Did God look on creation with its need for pruning, but also see its beauty and its uniqueness? Did God look at the mess and see that God had initiated this mess in some way? Those first days when God provided the breath of life, for how long did God wonder about what to do with the mess? How hard was it to begin the pruning process? My favorite image of where creation lives comes from Jürgen Moltmann, one of my favorite theologians. He says that we live in the womb of God. Imagine that God stretched a space within God's very self, that before there was anything, there was only God. So in order to make space for anything else, it had to come inside God. So God created a space, and that we, humans and animals, live within God. So how long did it take for God to decide to prune a portion of what God had made? How long did it take for God to decide to prune God's very self? Because it couldn't have been an easy decision. Pruning of oneself is not easy. Pruning requires honesty and action. The first step of pruning, right? Clean, sharp, bypass, pruners. The first step of pruning is the intention to make a clean cut, or else disease enters. Then the pruning process begins by cutting away that which is already dead. I hope I'm not speaking too much in metaphor this morning. When I imagine pruning the dead things on my life, I think about the things that have already come to an end, but that I might not be ready to let go. things in life have beginnings and endings, deaths and resurrection. We know this, and so we let go. Sometimes easier than other times. We let go of people who have died, of jobs or careers that have ended, of children as they grow up, of friends from previous seasons in our life. We let go of dreams that have been replaced by life or by other dreams. Letting go is a form of pruning. And sometimes we use sharp scissors and make a clean cut. And other times, again, maybe too much metaphor. Pruning of oneself is not easy. Pruning requires honesty and action. So once we let go of the things that have already died, the task of pruning turns to things that are causing harm or stunting growth. Relationships, habits, dispositions, right? A friendship that's cutting off life, or a habit that harms our health, or a disposition that keeps us from living full lives. Sometimes we begin to see things are stunting our growth once we realize who or what we want to be, or what we're meant to be. What is the life that God has for us? Who or what do you want to be when you grow up? The answers to those questions often help us figure out what's getting in the way of becoming that. What in our lives are crossing or rubbing? What is causing harm or stunting growth? Is our physical health thriving? How about our emotional health or our spiritual vitality? Are we healthy? Are we intellectually alive? When's the last time we learned something new? Are we bearing fruit? Are we creating kindness or love around us? Are we fostering grace and peace in our relationships? Are we serving others, spreading the breath of life that has been given to each of us? Because trusting God, or walking in the footsteps of Jesus, or living in the Spirit requires pruning. And pruning is not easy. But that's how we participate in what God is doing in our lives and in our world. Pruning of oneself is not easy. Pruning requires honesty and action. So answer this question honestly, not out loud, but what is standing in the way of living the life that God has intended for you? Pruning of oneself is not easy. Pruning for the right shape, for the right vegetation, for the right life, for the right calling, pruning for optimal growth is hard and it's diligent work. Pruning means acknowledging that things go awry, that life gets messy and it needs cleaning up. Life grows, life is always in flux, life is always on the move, and so it's true now, and it was true long, long ago when the Nephilim roamed the earth, whoever they are. When people began to multiply on the face of the earth, it got messy. Everything on dry land in whose nostrils was the breath of life died, pruned by its own creator. But God remembered Noah, and the wild animals, and the craziness of the zoo cruise. And God made a wind, did you hear that? To blow over the face of the earth, and the waters subsided. A new wind, a new breath, a new spirit. The waters gradually receded, and things began again. God pruned the breath of life. We can prune our lives too. Amen.